Hello, I'm David Chaston with 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz. This week, get everything you need to know in 90 seconds at 9 o'clock, with news of no sign of any reductions in emerging market debt, one of the world's key risks. But first, on Wednesday, the New Zealand current account deficit came in improved at 3.1% of GDP. Today, we got data from the US of their current account deficit, which also decreased. Theirs is 2.8% of GDP. We also saw a small rise from last week's 5-month low of the number of Americans who filed for jobless claims, bedding in the improvements in their labour markets. This adds to a streak of low claim levels that is the longest in more than 40 years. But that key labour market is not at full vitality yet. The number of people who hired into a new job or quitting an old job both declined in January, despite the US 4.9% unemployment rate. Still, American job openings are at an historically high level. A few days ago, we reported strong factory gains in the New York Fed's region, and that is backed up today by a similar rebound in the Philly Fed region. In Hong Kong, they are experiencing some of the harshest economic conditions in 2 decades, with the current downturn in property and retail sales worse than during the SARS epidemic. That's according to one of the country's richest investors. And in a major review of emerging market debt, paints a worrying picture. Leverage continues to rise in these risky markets across all sectors, rising $1.6 trillion to $62 trillion in 2015, and that's over 210% of GDP. While this was a slower pace than accumulation in 2014, refinancing risk has risen. Of course, China is the dominant member of the emerging markets. In Australia, analysis by their Reserve Bank shows a return on equity of the big four banks averaged about 15% by the end of 2015, beating Canada's banks on about 14% and well ahead of the US and European banks, which all had return on equity below 10%. The New Zealand components of these banks supply an even higher return on equity than their Australian parents. In New York, the benchmark US Treasury 10-year yield retraced yesterday after the markets considered the Fed's review and press conference statements, and a midday trade today is at 1.9%. CDS risk premiums are falling. In fact, the sovereign CDS spreads for New Zealand have fallen almost 30% from the beginning of February. Australasian investment grade spreads, that's for corporates, have fallen 16%, held up by the Aussie miners in this category. The oil price is up sharply today and is now at $40 a barrel in the US, while Brent is just over $41 a barrel. OPEC is meeting, and the risk is that they will somehow agree output restraint. At the same time, petrol demand is rising in the US. The gold price has shot higher today, up $34 and is now at $1,264 an ounce. New Zealand dollar is also higher after yesterday's better than expected GDP result, and it starts today at 68.5 US cents, at 89.6 Aussie cents, and at 60.5 Euro cents. The TWI is just on 71.6, yet another impressive and consecutive 100-point gain. The currency market is making a chump out of Graham Wheeler and his rate cuts. I'm off next week, so don't forget to vote in the flag referendum. I just hope we have grown up enough to adopt an emblem that doesn't have another country's flag embedded in it, and one that is often confused with that of other countries. I'm David Chaston. That was 90 at 9, brought to you by interest.co.nz.